Good morning. My name is Joel de Messan. I am the CEO of Smart Wi-Fi, which is also the company that's sponsoring this auditorium. I will be having this conversation with you today with three hats on. That of a CEO of a technology company that's involved with helping organizations with social media marketing, as a management consultant who specializes in that area, but also as a specialist researcher in that field at Cranfield University. About a couple of months ago, I was giving a talk at Cranfield University, and it was to an audience of executives, marketing executives from some of the top organizations in the UK. And I asked them to write down what it is that they like most about social media and what scares them most about social media. And one of the executives wrote this down, that it is the most groundbreaking marketing innovation of our times. And the idea behind it is that it's proving very critical in defining the rise and fall of businesses. And he made another statement following that. And he said, it has the ability to force giants to their knees and turn small innovative companies into global stars overnight. So after the talk, I went to speak to him. And I said to him, can you explain that to me? It turned out that a couple of weeks before, a customer flew with his company, lost his luggage, spent $1,000 of his own money, went onto Twitter, and started a campaign against them. That said very simply, do not fly with these people, they cannot look after your luggage. It whipped up such a storm around Twitter that the chief information officer and the chief communication officer, head of operations, have to gather together to try to weather it. And that is the power of social media today. So it has the ability to propel your business to new places, but if you get it wrong, it also has the potential to have detrimental effects on your business. So what we're going to be talking about today is about how you build a social media strategy that ultimately makes money for you, because at the end of the day, it's about making money for your business from your social media activities. And you have heard a lot of talk about social media, which never comes down to how you create that relationship between your social media assets and bringing money into your company. And we'll try to address some of those issues today. So the focus will be first on the strategy and then the steps that will be involved in building your assets to monetize them. But let's start with the fundamental premise of what the social media assets are. And I think most people here will say it is people. And I will say that is wrong. Because an asset is something that you have a certain degree of control over, that you can dispose of. And people are not your assets, they've never been. And I know business has said this again and again, that our people are our best assets. They're not. What your assets are the relationships between your business and the people. That's what you have some control over. That is what you should really focus on. And when we train people thinking that that's enough to keep them with the business, often we realize that as soon as they finish their training, they're gone. They stay when the relationship with the business is good, when the managers are doing the right thing in terms of building relationships. Relationships are the assets. And if we move from that premise, then to do an effective social media strategy, you need to be able to consider four things: relevance, audience, influenceability, and location. And this is partly to do with work that we've been doing with all sorts of organizations, but also my research at Cranfield University. And in the next few slides, I'll take you through each of them one by one and really give you the significance of all of them. Now, relevance is about taking a step back and determining the extent to which social media is valid and relevant to your business, how you should use it, and really being clear about that before you jump onto the bandwagon of doing whatever you want to do on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and the rest of it. And it depends on the nature of your business. The second point is audience, and which is probably the most important one you should consider. And I'll talk you through the process of audience analysis for the purpose of setting the parameters of the social media strategy. it should all be linked to your business models. And the three determining factors are localization, transferability of loyalty, and rentability of loyalty. Localization is about understanding how the operational layout of your business determines what you should do on social media. So, if you have a coffee shop or a restaurant, the majority of your customers will be within 5 miles driving distance of your business. If you are going to build an audience on Facebook for your restaurant, you should be focusing on building local audiences and appreciate what percentage of that audience will be transient people, tourists, and the rest of it coming through. And that's very important. If you are a company that is involved with online marketing, localization is limited by the territories that you are prepared to ship your goods to. So therefore, your activities should be focusing on those territories that you are serving. Any money you spend building relationships that are out of those territories may be good to some extent for your brand, but really, that's not where you should be focusing. So understanding the localization, which is the relationship with the distribution of your business, who you serve, is very important in getting it right. I'll give you some example about how localization can truly change the bottom line in terms of increasing your revenue in a bit, using one of our clients. But transferability of loyalty is really thinking hard about how you can transfer the loyalty you've created with individuals to make more money. So, 2 examples. If you are running a chain of restaurants and they have different menus, can you use one customer in one restaurant to go to another restaurant, offer him an alternative? Can you transfer that loyalty? Sometimes, even within your portfolio of services, can you make more people buy other things? If you take the hotel sector, for example, transferability of loyalty in the hotel sector, if you take a hotel, an individual goes there, maybe they go there for a business meeting, and often they'll buy coffee with their business partner and spend 15 pounds every day. They are local, they're using it for business meetings. You have a restaurant in the hotel that is half empty all of the time. You can transfer loyalty to actually upsell within your internal networks, but really thinking hard about the customers you have and the relationship and how you leverage them. But more importantly, transferability among partners. And I gave this talk yesterday, and somebody asked me afterwards to really explain that bit a little bit more. The stars of today are people on social media who command huge audiences. There are 18-year-old kids on YouTube that have 20 million consumers of their content on a daily basis. When we used to use celebrities to launch brands, today you can do things with kids sitting in their bedroom that celebrities wouldn't possibly do for you. So understanding again how you partner to transfer loyalty between individuals or sometimes even partner companies, and some leading brands are doing it already, where you will see, for example, Coca-Cola doing something with Converse and using their followers on Facebook to put the Converse brand in front of them and reciprocally have their brand put in front of the Converse followers on their social media. You can do that at a local level, finding partners within your local communities for your business where you have transferability of loyalty as long as there is synergy between what your offerings are. The third thing is rentability of loyalty. And again, it's about really understanding your customer and customer behaviors. How often do they buy? What do they buy? For example, our technology, when we sell it to a customer, the customer is in a yearly contract or 18-year contract. So the rentability of loyalty for us is about a year or 18 months. For you, you may be selling coffee where people could buy it every day, or you're selling makeup. You know, on average, they take 3 months to run out of makeup and they buy again. Understanding the rentability of loyalty, the time frame between purchase decisions allows you to really focalize the way you approach social media and the way you put information in front of people. That's very important. Now let's move to influenceability. This is about understanding how information is generated and consumed in the space where you operate. How do your target audience generate information and consume it? When you understand that, you can start to frame your language in a way that makes it easy for them to take your message and share it amongst themselves and create virality for you. And yesterday I asked the audience if anyone knew of the mime, Beach Please. And there were 2 people. Anyone know of the mime Beach Please? Show of hand. You do, you are smiling. No, you don't? Okay. It is a form of communication amongst the 16 to 19-year-old. It's my little cousin who came up once I was doing a presentation, and he sat beside me and he said, "Do you know Beach Please? Everyone is talking about it." I said, "What it is?" And he showed it to me. It's a form of communication where you take a message, you frame the message with the expression "Beach Please," which says, in effect, "I've seen that before." If it's done properly, it's a form of comedic way of saying something. And if it's well done, they just send it to each other. And then I did some analysis on that. And you find some brands that have used it successfully, and the level of emails that were sent between youth on their behalf was staggering. And you suddenly realize that when you understand patterns of communication, you can feed into them. And those people, the reason why they're using that is to isolate people who are not members of their clique, who are not cool. If you understand it well, you can integrate it. And understanding those patterns are really important if you are brand managers. The last thing in this model is location. And I think it's simple enough, but it's also the most challenging. At some point, based on your budget, you're going to have to prioritize where you focus your social media activities. And there is a constant proliferation of social media platforms. There will be new ones tomorrow that we haven't heard of today. And they will start to pull the crowds. And sometimes if you look at the growth path of a social media platform, you say this is the fastest growing platform. But then, do they yet have the population that you want? At what point do you think enough of my audience is going to that social media platform for me to start to shift my strategy to position myself on that platform? It requires thinking. Ultimately, you've got to prioritize at some point. So, assuming we've done all of that right and that we understand all those elements about our customers, you then have to make a decision about how you apportion your time, resources, and money in terms of doing your social media strategy. And there are 5 types of activities that we are involved in on social media. The first one is to collect competitive intelligence. What is my competitor doing? Yesterday after my talk, a lady came to speak to me, and she is the managing director of one of the largest publishing companies. And she said to me, the challenges that we face is that we have so much content, and we don't know how to use it effectively. And I said, what are your competitors doing? And she did not know what her competitors were doing. I said, well, that's the starting point. Your successful competitors with social media will start to set the trend to what the activities should be. That's the starting point of your analysis. And we approach social media to collect competitive intelligence to position ourselves based on what the competition is doing. Crowd-driven innovation is a very important one, and if one that Apple, amongst others, have done very successfully. It's about understanding what your customers want to see next, anticipating that. And that's not just about your product, it's also a comparison of trend, because your customers are talking to their friends who may be on using alternative products to you. Using their insight allows you to know what you should be doing next, as opposed to having your executives making a decision what the next product or service should be. Brand positioning, which is self-explanatory, looking at trends in the business space, what's happening, who's doing what, who's talking about what, who's bragging about what, and more importantly, customer acquisition. For the consumption of 3 different types of audiences. Internal audiences, depending on the size of the organization you manage. Some companies have 50,000 employees, and they can have internal social media campaigns because the employees can buy the product. External consumption, or networks of partners. So if you are only placed here, you have to make a decision as to what percentage or what at all I'm using my money for in terms of social media. Maybe it's just this, which is fine. But when you do that, then you are clear about the apportionment of resources based on the strategy. Now, how do you do it? How do you build those assets? Do you go to the big world and find the right customers and bring them in? Or do you start from your customers and go forward? And that's a fundamental question, because at the end of the day, there is going to be a limit on your budget. And the answer, to my mind, is that it depends on where you are in your life cycle, the life cycle of your business. At the beginning of the business, you will have to go out and find customers and bring them in. But once you've done that, I think the focus should at least partially go onto the customer as the vehicle for bringing more people in. And I think there is a good argument for that. Typically in business, we tend to think of social media, go get some customers, they buy from us, and then they go into this pool over there, and then we go again, we try to find more and go back. But if you look at the characteristics of your customers, there's something not quite right with that approach. The first one is that you could put your customers into two categories. The average customer, who has about 190 contacts on Facebook, and the influencers, who may have over 2 million followers that are consuming their content regularly. The other thing about them is that about 70% of those people are in the same socioeconomic bracket. If I send you an invite on LinkedIn, you're going to assess it against where you are in your career, whether it will be relevant to you before you say yes or no. If I send you a friend request on Facebook, you're going to assess it against parameters whether I'm cool in the same category as you. We are doing that all the time. I think social media gives us a clean line of sight through the fog to find those people who are of the same in the same socioeconomic bracket as the existing customers. And I think that's very important. The other thing, probably, which is the most important, is that these people, they trust your customers more than they trust you or your brand. They may know your brand, but they trust their peers more because they know, okay, I know this guy's taste, I've known him well, her well, and that element is the single most important asset you should be leveraging in those relationships you've been building up. So, the next stage is to really understand what type of business you're running. And there are various ways to categorize this, but we can put them in two categories and say, those that have a physical presence, so hotels, restaurant, coffee shop, airport, play, recreation centers, you still have a measure of face-to-face contact with your customers. And then we have the ones that are more virtual. Some retailers are fully online. Printing companies have now just gone completely online. You don't have few printing shops to work in. Companies like this. The category you fall into has a lot to do with how you build your social media assets. And at this point, I'm going to say a little bit about a simple way of doing it, which is the only time I'm going to talk about my technology today. Now, if you imagine a technology that will allow you to turn a customer that walks into your venue into a social media connection, a permanent social media connection, can segregate the customers by their preferred social media platform already. Tell you who they are, age, gender, city they came from, tell you when they came to your business, how often they come into your business, and allows you to pre-plan your communication on the social media platforms with them based on the activities you have in the pipeline. So for example, you may be in a situation where you have a few events coming, you want a tweet to go out at 4 o'clock on Saturday, you want another message to go onto your Facebook page at 6 o'clock on Sunday, where you can do all of that ahead of time. The technology exists. That's what our technology does. But I'll move quickly on from there. If you are in the space of virtual presence, then there are two factors you should be thinking about again. Are you a high volume, low cost type of business where people buy a lot from you, or a low volume where you have a degree of activity between the person coming to buy from you before they finally buy? The example I'm going to give here, I can take credit for it. It's something that happened accidentally. We were going to a conference. We needed a run of business cards to be done. And we found a small printing company that could give us a quick turnover, 24 hours, get it the next day. So we used them. The next day I got an email through that says, add us on Facebook send a message to us via your inbox, and we'll send you a code to get 20% discount on your next order. We did add them on Facebook. We messaged them and we got the code. Now, this company, in that small window of opportunity, sent an email, and the title of the email was very simple. It says, "Your last order." And I hadn't got the order by that time, so I thought, what's happening with my order? So I opened the email. So I suspected probably 90% of people who have opened that email. They closed that loop so quickly, I thought, this is brilliant. To me, it was genius. And if they succeed in doing that with every customer that has bought from them, because they're high volume customer business, they do that, they have the ability to build their social media following with real customers who are buying from them. And I think that's probably something you could think about. If you are a low volume company, then you may have a service that people have to come to you, talk to your salespeople, bounce communications a bit before they finally buy. Again, you have a window of opportunity there where every sales staff can add that individual to your link, to themselves on Facebook or LinkedIn at least, or Twitter, depending on the nature of your business. Again, you can build those relationships. But then there is an ethical problem that comes up here, which I'm going to sort of put to you. I said to you at the beginning that the relationships are the assets. Now, the question is this. On LinkedIn, I would add the individual to my page. If I move away as an employee of the business, I may go with all those relationships. So should the business keep the relationship, or the individual keep those relationships and go with it? And I think it's a challenging question, but depending on whether you are self-employed, you have your own business, or whether you are working for somebody, or there's a question there to answer. So LinkedIn allows you to actually create a profile and change the name and the picture and everything later on. So should the company own those relationships, or should the employee own those relationships? It's a question that I leave with you, but it's a very interesting one, because if the relationships are the assets, then there's a serious question there where an employee that has been with you and developed 500 very powerful contacts with your best accounts walks away, and all those relationships are gone. The next person that comes in has a void and rebuild it. It's very interesting. So to conclude very quickly, because I think I have just about 5 minutes on the clock, an intelligent social media marketing activity should have a degree of customer acquisition if you spend money to do that. And then after that, there should be some effort spent on customer retention effort, but also building your relationship assets. But more importantly, identifying influencers and using them for peer-to-peer trust-based activities. And that's quite important. There's something to remember, the reason why this is very important. If you are on Facebook and you do a like campaign, that could give you anybody who may not be in the localization that we talk about, who may not be relevant to your business. If you do a buy campaign where somebody clicks on an advert and goes to your website and buys something from you, they've bought from you, but you haven't created any link to that person on Facebook. They may, if they choose, like you in the process, but there is no link that stays there. So therefore, you've done an acquisition exercise, you've got some customers, but there's no relationship that has been built that you can go back and be able to put information on your Facebook page, which goes onto that person's timeline for the person to consume it. So therefore, unless you spend some time as the person is buying or has bought to create some relationship with them, then you've lost an opportunity. And it's about building those assets. And what we're seeing again and again are companies consistently getting locked up in the customer acquisition process and then losing lots of customers because their competitors are doing the same thing and picking it off. And every time they have to go back and do this again. And the importance of what I said earlier about localization is that if you get the localization right, then the parameters you set on Facebook are very specific. If you don't get the localization right, you're going to be putting your advert in front of people who may click on it. You've lost money every time they click on it, whether it's pay-per-click or pay-per-display. and they're not generating money for you. So to make the return on your investment on Facebook ad right, you've got to get the localization right, very concise, so that you can set the parameters so that the people who click on it are the people who are likely to buy from you, those valuable, value-added assets. So the purpose of Rail, which was the framework, is to help you understand who your customers are, to create a winning social media strategy, retain those, and bring more customers in, using their methodology. I have a few more slides that I have wanted to show you, but I think I will not because we're running of time. If you wanted to hear about them, then talk to me afterwards. But ultimately, the customer relationships are the best assets. Everything starts and ends with them, and the focus should be on them. Thank you very much. Cheers.